G'day YouTube, Quacker John here. This video is a compilation of two videos concerning the booster plug for the Kawasaki Vulcan S. Due to the emissions regulations in various countries, the Vulcan S has an issue at 2 to 3,000 revs, where the fuel mixture is so lean that the Vulcan S shudders and struggles at low revs. The booster plug overcomes this problem by making the bike think that the temperature is low at low revs so that it runs a richer fuel mixture to the motor. At above 3,000 revs, the bike operates normally as though the booster plug wasn't there. Here is the packaging that the booster plug came in when imported from the Denmark company. And here is the booster plug. The booster plug is placed under the fuel tanks and simply plugs in. Alan is a subscriber of the channel and a regular on livestream. He lives in Michigan, USA. On September 11, 2020, I had a chat interview with Alan concerning the booster plug, and here is the video. G'day YouTube, Quacker John here. Today I have Alan here with me to discuss the booster plug for the Vulcan S. Alan is a subscriber of the channel and a regular on livestream, and now he is a regular on the chat interviews. He is from Michigan, USA. G'day, Alan.
G'day, mate.
So, why do you see the need for a booster plug?
Well, when I first picked up the motorcycle, it had like 0.2 miles on it. No miles on it whatsoever. And as I started riding it around, I noticed that the throttle was a little jerky or on off. I mean, you give it a little, it just didn't have a good feel to it. And once you got off the throttle, it didn't make any difference what gear you were in, whether it was first gear, second gear. It had severe, what I would consider severe engine braking. It really slowed the bike down. It was almost like hitting your front brake, because they would actually, push me forward a little bit. The weight transfer was a little bit forward, and the front forks would compress a little bit. I just didn't like it whatsoever. The throttle was, like I said, not the best. It just didn't. The bike didn't seem natural, if you will. It should be pretty smooth off the line as you let the clutch out, and you throttle and you shift. That all should be pretty smooth, and it just didn't have that. And at low RPMs, just above idle, the Kawasaki Vulcan S idles at around 1,200 to 1,300 RPM, and at about 1,500 to 2,000, 2,500, it just seemed, I don't know, glitchy, jerky. It just didn't seem real smooth. And if you were in gear and accelerating or giving it throttle, it just didn't seem to have a lot of power there. It just seemed kind of, I don't know, weak is the best way I could describe it.
Okay, so how does the booster plug work to improve the performance of the bike?
Well, I would suggest if you're really looking to do something about that initial throttle response and engine braking and off idle lean conditions, and you're thinking about the booster plug, go to the booster plug website. They have a very nice write-up. But basically what is going on is since 2006, most motorcycles have what they call a closed loop system, meaning that there's an engine control unit, an ECU, that is monitoring all kinds of different sensors. In fact, I wrote some down. There's a throttle position sensor, an RPM sensor, an oil temperature sensor, an air pressure sensor, an air inlet temperature, And then the closed loop part of it is there's an O2 sensor at the exhaust. So the ECU is monitoring all of that, what's going on with the motorcycle. And obviously it's changing timing, it's changing, the fuel requirements, everything based on all of that. And when and obviously the engineers with Kawasaki had to deal with emission controls throughout the world. Some of them are pretty lean, so they leaned out the bottom end. So right off idle going forward, you're kind of running a lean condition, and then at some point that lean condition goes to what would normally be a good air fuel ratio, say 14:1 is the perfect air fuel ratio, and then it goes. And so that's why you get this throttle response thing that's kind of ugly. The booster plug, and they have a nice write-up, basically fools the ECU, because what it does is it plugs into your air inlet temperature sensor. So it takes longer to get the thing installed because you have to lift the tank up to get your hand in, at least for the Kawasaki Vulcan S. And you unplug, there's a little plug, you unplug that from the air inlet temperature sensor, and you plug the booster plug into that. They've got it perfectly set up. You plug, and then you run this little resistor piece out to some cool air. And what it's basically doing is fooling the ECU that you're running the air temperature outside and whatnot is at 20 degrees C or 68 degrees Fahrenheit. And so what that does is it kind of tells the ECU to fatten up the exhaust a little bit, or the fuel air mixture a little bit. They say about 6%. So you get a little more fuel going in, which really smooths everything out. And the beauty about the booster plug is that I installed it along with the Delcabec exhaust, and I had 0 codes. There was no engine codes coming whatsoever. I didn't have to take it to a dyno. I didn't have to have anything remapped, none of that. It was just plug and play, which is really nice. And the other beauty about the booster plug is if you do have emissions controls, or you have a country that does those type of testing, to unplug it it's just reverse. You unplug from the booster plug, the two things, you plug the stock harness back into the air temperature, and you're back to stock. So you could pass emissions that way, or leave it on and go through the emissions. I'm assuming, since it's not throwing engine codes, that everything is like where it's supposed to be from an air fuel mixture exhaust system, because obviously it's a closed loop system. You got that O2 at the end. It's reading all of the exhaust coming out. It's telling the engine control unit what's happening from an emission standpoint, the nitrous oxides, the carbon monoxides, all of that. And then the computer's sitting there messing with your air in, how much air is going in, how much fuel is going into the fuel injectors, how much timing is given, all of that. And then it takes into consideration a lot of other parameters with the engine, whether it's warming up, whether it's cold, whether it's hot, all of those things. So that's how basically the booster plug works. I have found it very good for me. It does exactly what it should. It makes, and they even say this on the booster plug website, that it's very effective in smoothing out that initial throttle response on low RPMs, and I found that to be absolutely true. The engine braking is not as severe. The throttle now is a lot more progressive. It's not herky-jerky on-off. It's a lot more progressive, and it just works amazing. And there's no engine codes. You don't have to worry about any of that. Like I said, you don't have to take it to a place, have them run it and flash your easy. It's plug and play. So it's really, really, in my opinion, the way to go. How much performance it adds, I don't know. All I know is it made the bike a lot more rideable, drivable, if you will, at low RPMs. And even you, after you put yours in, found that at low RPMs, grunting along at 2,500, 3,000 RPMs, maybe up a hill or just taking off, the bike's a lot smoother. It just doesn't struggle like it used to, do. And, as far as, I don't know, it just, I don't know. I would recommend it. It comes down to whether or not you want to pay that money. I think they're $160, $170 US. I don't know in other parts of the world what they cost, but I think the original engineering was done in Denmark. Those people are excellent. Again, I spoke to those people, and they had nothing but, and then I did a lot of reading and a lot of the stuff, a lot of the testing that he did a lot of it for a lot of different bikes. So I know he's got a lot of that stuff for the BMWs. He's got them for Harleys. He's got them for other motorcycles. He's tested each and every one individually and found the right fuel ramps through all of that testing. So there you go.
Alan, would you say that the problem that the Vulcan has at low revs is not because of Kawasaki engineering, but because of the emissions regulations imposed on Kawasaki?
That's exactly correct. It is the problem across the world. I mean, I understand everybody wants to curtail or limit the amount of emissions, carbon emissions, and nitrous oxide emissions and carbon monoxide emissions to the atmosphere. I get it, but there is a point. There's a balancing point where you can run too lean, and you start really hurting that. And I think Kawasaki, those engineers, they did a great job. They looked at all of the emission requirements throughout the world and came up with the lowest common denominator, saying, okay, we have to meet these. And so they regulated within their engine control unit mapping the fuel ratios that would, meet all of those standards. And so, and then now you're in the manufacturing, right? So now you're just putting mass amounts of motorcycles out, and they'll all meet the emission standards throughout the world. So I can sell the bikes in Europe, the UK, Australia, India, the United States, and not have any problems. So it's really not the Kawasaki engineers that I think they did a great job. It is the emission standards being forced upon them and all manufacturers for that matter, with the different struggles with what you're going to put in there. Where this world is completely dependent at this point in time on the internal combustion engine, and burning gasoline and getting from here to there. You take all that away, we're not going anywhere. There won't be airplanes, there won't be cars, there won't be motorcycles, there won't be any. We'll go back to horse and buggies. But yeah, it's all based on the emissions regulations, and that's just like the exhaust. Emissions. They're it's all regulated. How much noise you can make, how much with the emissions, how much you can put in the atmosphere, all that stuff. So
Alan, for someone who has a Vulcan S, you would recommend the booster plug for them?
I would, if you're not satisfied. Two things. If you're not satisfied with the performance of the Vulcan S at low RPMs and throttle response, and you're not necessarily happy with the engine braking, and the second part is you can afford the $160, $170. I don't want anybody going broke on this, but yeah, I would absolutely recommend it. I think it would be the first thing that I would do to smooth out those 2 or 3 parameters. It just gives you a much better throttle response. Doesn't hurt the engine. There is still some engine braking, but not as severe. And it just smooths the engine out at lower RPMs, and it does not have any effect on the engine above, say, 3,500 or 4,000. It just, the bike runs like it's supposed to. So, and like I've said before, my miles per gallon has not been hurt at all. I get a little over 54, almost 55 miles to the gallon on my Kawasaki. So it's one of the things for the Vulcan S that I would strongly recommend if you're in the mindset of, getting some improvement on the low part of it, and you don't want to spend $400 or $500 on a power commander, and then have spend another $400 or $500 getting it dynoed and all that kind of stuff. So it's probably the cheapest way to go to gain a little bit of performance, but a whole lot of drivability, rideability on the motorcycle.
Okay, well, under the video, I'll put the link to the website in Denmark, the people who sell the booster plug, if you want to look into that. And Alan, that wraps up our chat. Thank you for watching, and thank you, Alan, for your thoughts. I'm sure it's helped a lot of people.
Yeah, and here's the other thing, and as we've talked about before, I put it in myself. It is a plug-and-play device. You can take it to the dealer and they'll put it in. It does not void the Kawasaki warranty, just like an aftermarket exhaust does not void the Kawasaki warranty. And if you're mechanically inclined enough to get the gas tank, there's 3 bolts, a bunch of plastic, and 3 bolts to lift it up a little bit to get your hand in there. Plug and play, set it up, and it's not that difficult to do. About a half an hour is all it will take you, and I think you'll find it immensely better. The Vulcan S in performance at low RPMs and the rest of it. It's a good deal.
Okay, well, thank you, Alan.
Thank you. You guys have a good day.
Thanks for watching my video. If you enjoy my videos, subscribe to the channel. Live stream is on every Wednesday night at 10 PM Brisbane, Australia time. You're most welcome to join in. You are most welcome to join the Quacker John chat room, and the link for your invitation to join the Quacker John chat room is in the comments under the video. See ya!